Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second John and Athena Talk About Stuff. Number 2, aren't you excited?
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, and for this one, we're going to do another movie, and this particular case, it's also another sequel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Funny enough.
It is The Incredibles 2, which actually is not called The Incredibles 2, it's just Incredibles 2, which makes no sense to me because the first one was The Incredibles, so if you're going to have a 2...
Is it really not?
It's really... There's
The Incredibles 2?
It's just called Incredibles 2.
Really?
Yeah, see, that makes no sense.
That just bothers me.
Right?
Immensely.
Right? Immensely. So we both agree that if you're going to call it Incredibles 2, then the first one should have just been Incredibles, and the second one should be The Incredibles 2, because it's about the family, right?
Yeah. They are The Incredibles.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm shaking.
I know. Everything you thought you knew about this movie is a complete lie. I'm sorry to be the one to have to break it to you.
The bearer of bad news.
The bearer of bad news. This is you know, I'm sorry. Do you need time? Should we move on?
Should we just edit out all the sobbing that's going to happen in the next 10 minutes?
No, that's fine. I think it will add something to it. So, any event, do you remember watching The Incredibles for the first time?
Not like for the very first time, no.
No, because it was 14 years ago, so you would have been...
Didn't it come out in 2004?
Something like that.
So it was like 5 or 6.
You were like 5 or 6 or something like that. Well, it came out 14 years ago, so let's do the math. You would have been 5.
Yeah.
Because you're 19 now. That's right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 5, yeah.
5. So, and I don't think we took you to see it in the movie theaters. I think I went to go see it in the movie theaters, but I don't think we took you.
That makes sense.
Because you were a little too young still then. We weren't those people who brought, kids to the movie theater unless it was specifically a kid showing sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people my age are really mean towards kids about The Incredibles 2. Because all I see are a bunch of memes about, like, pushing kids out of the way to get to Incredibles 2.
Well, the thing is they actually did so the first weekend was very successful. It made like $183 million here in the U.S., right? And the majority of that was not from families. The majority of that, as I understand it, was actually from adults. So the memes about pushing kids out of the way to go see Incredible 2
are completely true, I know.
Completely accurate. Well, we went to go see it, last night, and there weren't that many kids in the audience. It was a lot
of adults.
It
was really packed, actually, for a Tuesday. Discount Tuesday at Cinemark.
See, you guys were saying, well, of course it's packed as Discount Tuesday, but I've been to movies on Tuesday before that were not nearly that packed, so I think there was something else going on there. But you don't remember seeing Incredibles for the first time, the original film?
No, not like the very first time, or
right.
Just it's kind of just always been there.
Kind of in the background. Yeah. And what did you think about it when you were a kid?
I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like animated superhero movies as a kid?
Right. It was really interesting because obviously, I saw it as an adult, but I thought, and I still kind of think that the very first Incredibles film is probably the best superhero film that's been made, and enough so that I did a book which came out in 2005 that was called The Rough Guide to Sci-Fi Movies, which had the canon of 50 science fiction and fantasy films that you should see, and I put The Incredibles on it because I was like, this speaks directly to what superhero movies are about, what superheroes are, how they actually function in society, because it was the first movie that really put in the thing of that there was like physical damage that was being taken by a city every single time that they did one of their adventures, right?
Actually, there's an episode of the Powerpuff Girls like that.
Oh, yes, that's right. Where it has the guy who's the take your dad to work or to school day or something like that, or parent day at the school. And somebody was like, I work for the insurance company here in Townsville. I'm very, very, very tired.
I was thinking of a different part, but where like the mayor of another city is like, you cost like $4 million worth of damage. And they're like, we saved the day. What you talking about?
Right. Right. But but the Incredibles were the first ones that I think actually did it in kind of the movie milieu. There have been stuff, other places and in comic books and stuff like that, but that was the first one. So for me, it was the first superhero film that actually knew it was a superhero film.
Yeah.
No.
And also, I find it really interesting, just the whole world they're in general, because it's like 1950s vibe, but also kind of futuristic, like with the hover train,
right?
For example, and like the city. Did you see how massive that city was that they flew into?
Yes.
Like there was like 100 skyscrapers.
Right.
It was insane.
It was like the Inception city.
I've never seen it. Oh, I did see Inception.
You did see Inception.
I don't remember it.
It was a very long time ago.
I was like 9.
Right. But yeah, actually that design of it is actually super interesting as well. For everybody who's wondering what those noises are, we have a cat in the room with us, and she just knocked my glasses off my desk. So it does. It's very mid-century. The stuff that was on the TV in Incredibles 2 is like Johnny Quest and The Outer Limits, which is late 50s, early 60s sort of stuff.
That long?
Yeah. Wow. But it's an alternate history of... It's an alternate history universe, right?
It's like Earth 2.
Right, exactly, because there was like, in the first movie, there was a scene where Mr. Incredible is working the insurance job, and he has a computer on his desk, right?
Did he really?
Yes.
Oh, that bothers me.
So there's little bits and things here and there where you're like, it's definitely not meant to be exactly our universe, but it definitely touches design-wise on mid-century, like that house. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It has such a 1950s vibe, like the clothing and the cars. The cars is the biggest thing, really. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
Yeah. Incredibles 2.
Did you like it?
I did like it. I liked it a lot, and for a lot of the same reasons that I liked first Incredibles movie. I mean, again, it's a film that is aware of the actual consequences of superheroes doing their things. Like the opening scene of the new movie is what was happening at the close of the last movie, right? And so they have that big, the Underminer goes and does a whole bunch of stuff.
Destructive
stuff, and they try to save the day. And so a lot of the town gets torn up while they're doing it. And the response is, the banks were insured, the buildings were insured, now you come in and you mess everything up. Because one has to think that if the superhero is on duty, it shifts the cost of the destructions or something like that. So there's that, and there's the whole thing of whether or not people should have a choice of being, if they have superpower, whether or not they should have a choice of being able to exercise them and be super beings or whatever. So those fundamental story questions from the first movie kind of moved into the second one as well.
Yeah, I feel like all of the stuff that was talked about in the first movie was just like strengthened in the second movie.
Right.
Like how superheroes are illegal and how like Bob is like really sick of being in hiding.
Right.
And because like in the first one it was very obvious, he's sick of being in hiding, that's why he does the secret missions.
Sure.
But it's gotten to the point where he wants to do public missions. Like he is so tired of like being in the shadows that it's not just like secret missions anymore. It's like public stuff.
One of the things that really strikes me about Bob is that in many ways he's a superhero, but he's very much like a blue collar guy in the sense that he has one job. That one job, and that's the one thing he knows. And if he can't do it, he slowly starts going a little crazy because what he sees as his identity is something that he can't actually do. And to some extent, that's the story of like the blue collar worker in America anyway, like the guy who for 30 years worked at the steel mill or something like that, or worked on the factory floor, making Fords or whatever. And then one day he's laid off, has absolutely no idea what to do with himself. So even though Bob is meant to be a superhero, in many ways, that his crisis is something that kind of speaks to everybody who like defines themselves by their job, all of a sudden out of their job.
What did you think of the villain?
I don't think it was as strong a villain as the first movie.
Yeah, I thought Syndrome was, well, obviously way funnier.
Right.
Because Screenslaver like only talked like 3 times, and all 3 times it was pretty much said the same thing, right? But okay, you saw it coming who the true villain was, right?
Sure,
like,
sure.
Oh man, as soon as they introduced those characters, I was like, boy, those are the bad guys.
Right. Right.
Or, well, not both of them.
Right. But one of them had to have been.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're not avoiding spoilers in this discussion, so...
Oh, well.
Yeah, okay. In that case, yeah, no, there's a billionaire who decides to, put money into bringing the supers back, and it's a brother and sister team who run this big communications company, and one of them is the brains of the operation, and that's the woman, and the guy is the salesman. He's the guy who goes out and makes the business end of things. And they have a rather different philosophy in terms of what the superheroes are and what the superheroes should be. And I actually think that's the weakest part of the thing, because the thing with Syndrome was you could see how someone made the thing about recently, like Syndrome is every supremely entitled gamer boy who gets angry that things aren't the way that they wanted them to be, and they weren't able to do, the things that they expected they were able to do, and so they want to take it out on everybody else. But he had a really solid backstory. He was introduced early. All of that added up. And in this one, it's less about, they had a backstory and everything else like that, but it wasn't that particularly interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty weak.
Right. And to that extent, what it really, for me, the second film was much more about was the relationship between, like I said, Bob and Helen, yeah. And Incredible Girl. Elastigirl. Ah.
You fool.
I'm sorry. I'm blathering. But my point about that is that because like she is the front person now, he's the stay-at-home dad. There's a role reversal, and I think that that's more of what the movie is about. Their role reversal and him adapting to that and her adapting into it. And that's always been really interesting to me because I was the stay-at-home parent.
Yeah.
Yes, because you were there at the time. Yes. And so when Bob was having his, it's like, how do you do this? I was like, I wanted to go onto the screen and go, look, I can help you with this. I know how this works because,
But then again, his baby is kind of harder to deal with.
Okay.
Serious.
No, I'm not. You were actually a really easy kid to kind of get off the subject just a little bit. But as you were growing up, you were never that temperamental. You were never that much of a problem, and you were
Sounds like me.
Yeah, and you were pretty much self-entertaining as far as those things went.
So you say you feel like it was more about the role reversal and like about their relationship and stuff, but I feel like it was way more about the law versus superheroes.
Well, tell me about that then.
Basically, obviously, they are the good guys, and like they just want to help people, but they're illegal for some reason, and that reason being that they like cause a bunch of destruction.
Sure.
Which, sure, but it's silly for them to be illegal because so much bad stuff happens, and like superheroes would help prevent that.
Now, let me ask you this theoretically. Like, in the real world, do you think that would actually be the case? Because unless you had a whole bunch of superheroes all the time, like literally like thousands of them, like when 1% of the population had superpowers or something like that, it seems like they wouldn't really do that much on a day-to-day basis because they're only one person. There's only so many things that you can do. What they would do would be almost like picking off like the high-profile things, which wouldn't necessarily even be the ones that would be the most useful. I don't know. I mean, I have a tendency, as much as I enjoy superhero movies, I tend to be, think that in the real world that you would have to end up, I hate to say it, because it puts me on Team Iron Man as opposed to Team Captain.
Oh, God,
right?
No.
Right. And I don't want to be that, right? But you would have to, quite honestly, you would have to be like, look, your superheroes would have to be licensed. They would have to be bonded from insurance purposes and all that sort of stuff. You would have to say they have to work within the scope of laws and stuff like that. They can't be vigilantes and stuff like that. And then because they have the potential to, just so casually break the law and so on and so forth. That you would either need to create a special class of laws to administer to them, which would then bring up all sort of constitutional issues, in the United States at least, and would also make the point that you would have basically two classes of humans.
Okay, this is this really pertains to what I was thinking about the movie the whole time, because you know how Zootopia is a huge nod to racism.
Sure.
I feel like this was a huge nod to illegal immigrants and stuff like that.
How so?
Because there's still people, you can't just make them illegal.
Right.
And constitutional issues like you were saying. Oh, and also there was this one thing, the conversation between Ellen and Bob at the dinner table when they were eating Chinese food.
Right.
And he was like, what are we teaching our kids?
Right.
The law should be broken if it's an unfair law.
Right.
Legality is not a guide to morality.
Right. I don't know. I never really thought about it from the perspective of superheroes being in the same way as refugees or asylum seekers or people coming across the border of the United States without permission. Right?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking of. The whole movie is just wow, this just represents it so well, I think. Just because there's a lot of people that are hey, why are they illegal? Make them legal. Mm-hmm. And everyone's no, they're criminals. They cause problems.
Right.
That's their main issue, is that they're not superheroes, they're criminals, so they should be illegal.
Right.
But
is this something you think that they put in there intentionally, or is it just something you're picking up, do you think, in part because the way the world is right now, especially right at the moment where we have a president and administration that is making the blanket claims that everybody who's coming across is criminal and they're illegal and all that sort of stuff, which is kind of nonsense, but certainly heightens tensions no matter what.
Well, see, I really thought that they did it on purpose, but it's taken them so many years to make this movie.
Right.
It's not they just threw this together in the last couple months that
right.
Things have been really crazy like this.
No, and I think that's accurate. But that's one of the really interesting things. I mean, speaking as a creative person, that happens is you write something and you write it in a period of time where you're writing it, and then it gets released a year or two later or whatever, and the context has changed. When I released The Collapsing Empire, people were like, oh, this is about environmentalism, or it's about shrinking resources and so on and so forth. And when I was putting it together, I was thinking of the colonial era back in the 16th and 17th century. So I was thinking of something completely different, but in the world that it came out in, people were seeing connections that I didn't necessarily put there. I mean, so you think that the timing of it is going to change the way that we look at it? It's in the right place at the right time with this particular message?
Yeah, I feel like it really couldn't have come out at a better time. And I mean, I know that's saying something because people waited a long time for it. Right. Very impatiently. But in my opinion, I don't know if literally anybody else saw this message at all, but I definitely thought it was an exact parallel to it, really. Yeah.
So we're about to run out of time here.
We didn't even talk about the movie itself.
No, we do. This is the thing, is we want to keep these things fairly tight. Was there one thing that you want to talk about specifically?
Well, what do you think about the other heroes that Elastigirl worked with?
I thought they were fine. I thought that they were kind of just like a Mutz gallery. They were there because they needed to have them brought in. I think if they have a Incredibles 3 or something like that we'll see more of them, because at the end of it, the superheroes are no longer illegal, and then proceed from there. But they didn't really impress me very much. So, I mean, with the exception of Void, who...
Yeah, I was about to say Void was the only one that made an impression. And I mean, that was on purpose, because she was pretty much the only one that had any speaking parts or anything. Right. But Void was super cool.
Yeah. So, do you feel that Incredibles or Incredibles 2, which one do you is one better than the other?
I feel probably the first one is better, I think. That's a really tough decision, because I like the second one a lot, because Elastigirl kicked ass. Right. But I definitely think I like the first one better, just because I like the villain better, and it was the first of its kind of. Oh, also, I mean, there's nothing like seeing Edna for the first time.
Edna Mode. Yeah, who is great in this one, too.
Yeah,
right.
She was probably the best character in this
Right.
one.
I kind of feel the same way. I mean, I liked the second one very much, and I really enjoyed it. But I also feel like you said, the first one covers the ground for the first time, and it addresses a lot of things for the first time. And it had a kind of better through line for the story. It had a better villain. This one was a lot of fun. It had some really good stuff, great action scenes, and I liked the family interaction, and especially Bob trying to make it up to Violet.
That was just painful to watch. Like when they... That part at the restaurant.
The part at the restaurant.
Oh my god, I was crying laughing.
But that perfectly encapsulated embarrassing parents being embarrassing.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I never ever did that to you, ever. Ever.
Yeah.
So, on a grading scale of A to F, what would you give The Incredibles to?
An A minus.
An A minus?
Yeah, I'm thinking like a 91
Yeah.
or maybe just a 90, but like I feel like maybe a 91.
A good solid A minus.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with that too. I think we're in good A minus territory. I think Incredibles was an A. I think it's one of the best the Pixar movies, and I think this one's pretty good, but it's in the middle of the pack with the Pixar's. But I would definitely see it again.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. It was very actiony and funny and heartfelt.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I miss Mirage, that character from the first one. I really liked her.
Well, you know, unfortunately, Elizabeth Pena, who played her, has passed away.
Wow.
Right. So that's probably why she's not in there. So, in any event, so thank you everybody for listening to John and Athena talk about stuff. Incredible 2. Both of us give it an A minus. The Incredibles 2. The Incredibles 2.
Yeah, let's just call it that.
Yes, it's The Incredibles 2. The Incredibles 2, an A minus from both of us. Go see it. You'll enjoy it.
Oh, don't see it if you have epilepsy.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's got the whole really strobing thing going on. That's
Oh my gosh, can't believe I forgot to mention that.
right. Well, now you have, so it's
Yeah.
good call. Good catch
As soon
there.
as you said go see it, I was like, wait.
If you have epilepsy, remember that there's a part where there's a whole lot of strobing going on.
There's a lot of parts.
A lot of strobing going on. All right. So long, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.